Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bamboo. This is Vancouver's property management and investment podcast. My name's Haze, and today we have Hasan Juma on the show to basically talk about what's going down in Vancouver with investments and real estate and really anything else we get to, man.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
Wicked. So I guess we'll get right into it. I'm curious, before your real estate, because you've been at this for quite some time now.
Yeah.
What'd you do before?
Yeah.
What brought you here?
So basically, I've been doing it. Yeah, I've been doing this for a decade now.
Mm-hmm.
I basically used to work originally I was in corporate sales. So I worked for one of the big telecom companies doing corporate sales. I got into the quick service restaurant business. So I was a franchisee for A&W.
Okay.
We had multiple stores. It's a big learning experience for me, working in the restaurants and learning a lot about business. And so I had always felt like even when I was in corporate sales, I just never was really doing what I was supposed to do. In fact, when I was in corporate sales, I hated that world. Yeah. And so ultimately, in my 20s, I quit my job early on and I'm like, I'm going to take the real estate course. This was early on in my 20s. I took it. I didn't take the exam. And then a startup came around and they gave me a great job offer. Yeah. And I was at a crossroads. I'm like, do I continue to use the funds that are depleting and keep going into real estate, 24 years old? Yeah. Or do I take a big paycheck right now? Yeah. I chose the paycheck, like a lot of guys probably would. And then my next 10 years was just working. Yeah. The restaurants, corporate sales, these sorts of things. And then long story short, I noticed with the restaurants, we were in the process of selling them. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, I enjoy the process of selling these more than I ever did working in them. Yeah, and so that kind of got me to say, you know what, take the exam again. Yeah. And now's the time. Now you're more ready for it. And so that's what basically launched into my real estate career.
Cool. Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that about selling for the A&W, because I was reading an article how McDonald's is actually more of a real estate group because they always buy land and then sell it to developers or whatever. But it's kind of their bigger thing than flipping burgers.
Yeah, absolutely. And A&W, they're a really strong franchise. In quick service, they're based out of North Van. Not a lot of people know that.
No, I thought they were U.S. facility.
Yeah, so their head office is in North Van. Our restaurants were in North Van, so we had a lot of support. But what I learned about quick service restaurants is if you don't have high volume, the margins are so slim.
Really?
That you need to have a drive-through. You need to be doing $3 million a year gross to actually have some money kind of left over. So it's a tough business, learning experience, but it kind of paved the way for what I'm doing now. So I have some clients that I pulled over from A&W that work with me on the real estate side. So it's good.
Yeah. Also seems a lot of the realtors come from the service industry. I was in the bars for years, bars and nightclubs and stuff like that. So it's it seems like it's a general hop from the service industry into real estate for some reason. I guess we're just used to dealing with people.
Yeah, that. And also I think telecom too. I know quite a lot of top real estate agents now kind of started in telecom, like retail sales or whatever. So I guess once you do sales at any level, you're kind of if I'm doing it at this level, why don't I do it at this level, right? You got to sell the big thing, right? So I think that's ultimately what happened. So
wicked. So now with the stats that have just come out recently, I'm sure we all read them as soon as they come out there. Yeah. What are you thinking is going on with the market? We've got the rate cuts, but we are coming into the traditionally slower time. Yeah. Is one going to outweigh the other, do you think, or do you think everyone's just going to hang out and wait till spring?
Yeah, in terms of what's happening with the market, President Trump is happening with the market. Myself personally, I look back and I'm I can't remember a time where one individual has impacted so many things, so much further from where he is. He's had a big impact on Vancouver real estate, which I'll touch on, but obviously the stock market, he controls that with everything that he says. For ourselves here in Vancouver, we were poised to have a strong 2025. Last year, October, November, our sales were finally back to where we typically average at. Mm-hmm. And that's why the stats that are coming out now and next month, they're going to look pretty bad because we're comparing against, which was really a ramp up period last year. Rates were coming down. People were getting excited again. January was like double-digit sales growth, and then February rolls around and boom, like no more spring market. Everyone is scared for their jobs, trade war. So, in terms of like, what's going to happen. So we've been massively affected by that. So like, what's going to happen? Are people going to wait? I don't think it's so much like waiting for spring. I think it's just waiting for some sort of stability and calm that, hey, we have agreement in place and people feel comfortable that things are okay with Canada, US, because it impacts the jobs.
Oh,
and I think like, I don't know if you've been watching, like the unemployment rate keeps creeping up. I talked to quite a few buyers this year that put their, search on hold.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I don't know. Like I have a good job, but we're not hitting target or whatever it might be. And then they're not kind of moving forward. So I think ever since COVID, the way I see it is, spring market is stronger, but we've kind of deviated away from the whole spring is busy, summer is slow, January is slow. Like it hasn't really followed that pattern as much.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Honestly, your guess is as good as mine in terms of what's going to happen. I just hope we get on some sort of agreement level where we can actually move forward and people can start making big decisions like housing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, especially like back east, I've noticed it's really getting hit hard because that's where a lot of the car factories and whatnot are back there, right?
Yeah,
BC, our highest GDP is real estate, so
yeah, and like at the same time getting hit hard with like the condos and like the oversupply of condos over there. It's basically like 7 or 8 fold what we're dealing with over here. Like poor East Coast right now, right? Because they're dealing with it on the jobs front, they're dealing with it on the vacant condos front. It's not a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what I've noticed as well is that there seems to be the sales that are happening a lot in the condos in particular, of course, because that's what's being rented, is that the landlords are selling off a lot of their properties to try to get out of the market or essentially protect they're circling the wagons, basically, is what it seems like.
Yeah.
However, like when they're doing this, they are selling it and there's tenants in there. Mm-hmm. And so you work primarily in the sales side. What are a couple ways that are easier to work with the tenant? Because, I mean, they're uncomfortable. That's their home.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, people are moving in or generally buying it and moving in. So they're getting displaced. How do you bridge that gap and work with the tenants to make sure things are smoother?
Yeah, no, it's really difficult. And as you might know, like selling tenanted properties in general is difficult. And then in the market that we're in, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's very difficult to do. So, very often, just initially up front, I'll have the conversation with the landlord and, figure out what they paid for the property, what sort of terms the tenant's on, what sort of relationship do they have with them. Is there a possibility that they can mutually agree to terminate the tenancy and prior to listing? And I think in this market, you really have to explore that.
Yeah.
Now, generally, that's not a great scenario for a tenant, but in some cases now, a tenant can find another place, maybe even for less than what they paid, right? So they can get a little bit of cash from the landlord. They can move into another property. They can have a lower rent. Mm-hmm. So that conversation's easier in this market. But if you're in a situation where, look, you have to sell a tenanted property, you have to respect like the human side of this business, right? Absolutely. Like we work for the landlord. We need to fully respect the tenant because we have to put ourselves in that position if that were us, right? So just obviously being very communicative with them, trying to work with their schedule as much as possible. So I'll usually go to a tenant and say, are there specific days that are better for you where we can line up showings? How can I make this easier for you? I know it's not easy, but is there anything that I can do to make it easy? Like I'll definitely be promoting, an investor to purchase this property, another investor and try and keep you here. Mm-hmm. If we have that opportunity, I'll of course, try and go down that road. Yeah. But there's only so much you can do. And I think, again, in this market, if you're a landlord, you're thinking of selling, I've gotten a lot of calls this year. Most of my CMAs actually this year are that, where it's a landlord, the tenant either gave notice or they're tired, they want to move off of it. And you have to have that conversation and say, can we mutually agree to something? And, hopefully you can, and then you can sell a vacant property, which still difficult. A little bit easier. Still difficult, but a little bit easier.
Yeah, one of the tricks that I found is very helpful is for a landlord to offer the tenant to get out of their thing. So normally the tenant has to give 1 month notice.
Yeah.
And I found it very useful for any landlords to just say, hey, if you find a place and you can move in a couple weeks, take it. Because as you mentioned, the prices have been a little bit lower. There are other tenants looking. And so if they're a little bit more agile, now they can just get that place as opposed to being hogtied into seeing when somebody comes in and getting 3 months notice or whatever it may be. In a lot of cases, I find it nice. And it kind of gives that good juju.
And it's like a working together, right? Like everyone's kind of working towards the same thing. And realistically, like when landlords are selling these days, most often it's not because they're trying to cash in a huge windfall, right? A lot of times it's like they can't afford to keep making the payments. People are not going to want to hear this, but life is tough on them too. In their ways, right? I'm probably going to get roasted for that, but it is true, right? Like it's challenging for everyone. And again, most landlords calling me, they're getting close to being like underwater and saying, look, I just can't keep doing this. What are the steps to take? Especially if they bought, 2020 till now or whatnot, they bought at a peak price.
Really peak price.
Those are more challenging to deal with. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I've noticed that a lot of the landlords that are selling as well, though at least a fair amount that I've been dealing with it, obviously anecdotal, but they're basically getting towards that end. So as you were talking about, the job market's looking a little tighter. They're like, hey, maybe I'll retire a couple years early and move into the interior or whatever, somewhere cheaper. So they're trying to cash out now and just be on their merry way and be done. Exactly, right? Everyone has their different, kind of reasons for doing things, but I think for a lot of people, it's just there's pain in the market right now, and the pain is kind of felt like all around. Absolutely, so, Now, being that saying with the investments and prices have had some downward pressure on both rents and sales. Do you know any off the top of your head, like nice pockets that maybe people have overlooked for investing locally to get a good rental or at least set up for one in the future?
So I think like you always in this market, you always want to kind of go to areas where there's not so much inventory. There's not so much inventory today. There's not so much in the pipeline, and there's not so much being built currently or in plan. A couple areas that I find have been like pretty strong real estate wise still. Olympic Village, there's not a ton of condos available there. There's a relatively large chunk of leasehold condos there, which are a little bit different. So Olympic Village, Kitsilano has been pretty strong. Some of these desirable areas where realistically the land costs have been so high that developers haven't flocked there to build towers like they have in Surrey Central or these types of areas. So I would initially say places like that, but also having the understanding like you really have to hold long. Like before real estate agents, it's almost like part of training where you get in and they're like hold for 3 to 5 years and you're going to be fine. Now it's 7 to 10 years. Like we have to change kind of what that scope is. So I think that area is good. Also, even though I mentioned like there's a lot of inventory coming to Surrey Central, I've seen the prices come down so significantly there. Right? You can get new one beds now in the 300s in concrete towers for units that people are paying like close to 500 for, like in pre-sale, right? So you also want to follow like the big money. So when I say big money, like where are the institutions putting their money? Where's the city putting their money? Where are they investing? Where's UBC going? Where's SFU going? They spend a lot more on research and R&D than you or I could. So just follow them and do what they're doing. But don't think especially with rental, like you're not going to make a quick win. It's not a quick win type of a product. What I find for rental investors, a lot of my clients now, they have children and they want a good investment that ultimately is going to be their home. And they realize if they don't make a purchase today for their child who might be 9 or 10 years old, that child may never have the opportunity to purchase a home, right? So make sure you have strong conviction as to why you're getting a rental property, and then choose the right agent and the right areas to work.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now I don't know. Do you deal with anything non-locally? Because we haven't developed. So have you heard of any hotspots maybe across Canada? I know a lot of people were talking Alberta for a while, but any other ones that you sort of in your secret pack?
I think Alberta has inflated quite a bit, but from what, so I talk to agents across the country, and then I have I have a few clients actually that educate me on other areas because they are in, for example, Winnipeg or Toronto, wherever they might be, and they're kind of filling me in on other investments they have. I still think Edmonton's a strong rental market. So I think Edmonton versus Calgary, Winnipeg as well for rentals. Now, generally speaking, you don't necessarily see like the capital appreciation that we typically would see here in Vancouver. Like that's disappeared now, but you don't really see that. But the rents are pretty strong. They're more tenant cities, I guess you could say. Like more people are renting there, so the demand is pretty good. And the property costs, any of these kind of central areas, making sure that you're like close to the city where the jobs province. I think those are good areas if you specifically want rentals. If you want your capital to appreciate and to grow, I personally wouldn't put it there. I would put it in the A markets, the Torontos, the Vancouvers, or the S&P 500 realistically, right?
You don't only have to invest in real estate. Oh no, that's our whole show. No.
We're done. Well, you got to diversify, right? I think that if there's something we've learned, like you really do have to have your eggs in several baskets. And it's something I've had to do this year too, where I've been like so heavy real estate, where I'm like, look, you gotta spread it out, especially because my income is real estate, right? So if your income is real estate and then 80% of what you hold is real estate,
it's a lot of eggs in one basket.
It's overweight. Yeah,
absolutely.
So shift around.
Now, with the market having some downward pressure, both for rentals and for sales, we see a lot of owners are white knuckling it and hoping for the prices that were back then. And it's just not happening. For dealing with that, how do you deal with owners that aren't going to drop their price, or is there other things they can do other than just dropping their price that would be, obviously they're not going to renovate the whole house, but is there anything small that would maybe get them closer to what they're aiming at?
It's a good question. In today's market, no, it's price.
Price only.
No, it's pretty much price. Marketing does play a role. Definitely, I've had instances where people have viewed my listings because they saw it on social and that sort of stuff. So that helps. But in today's market, if the price is not the most attractive price out there or close to, people aren't even going to view. So on the listing side, when you ask like how do you handle that, this is the year, or I would say the last 18 months is probably the time where I've had to have the most difficult conversations in my entire career. And it's been exhausting, to be honest with you. Like it's, if I can be real, like it has beaten not just myself, but a lot of realtors down this year when I talk to people. And so you have two choices. It's like, do you have that difficult conversation with a seller before you have a listing signed? And you say, look, you're thinking this, I'm telling you it's going to be this, and you're saying this at the risk of not getting the listing? Or do you do what some other agents will do, and they'll have the difficult conversation later after they already have the signature, right? So they get it signed, they're like, yeah, we're going to try, but they know in their head they're not going to get it, and then they have the difficult one later. So for me, I'm more of an upfront, like I'm just realistic, like this is what it's going to be, and if we're just too far off, I walk away. You have to walk away from listings. You have to be willing to do that. There always will be an agent. You're probably familiar, but there always will be some agent that will take it on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And based on, maybe they live super close by. Maybe they don't have a lot else going on and they want to work it. But, when we talk about other things you can do to sell in this market, it has to start with price. I think in this market as well, like you have to definitely be show ready. You have to have a clean home, almost looks like a show home. I wouldn't suggest to people though to undergo a big renovation to sell, because renovations, like everyone has their own taste, right? Of what, no matter how good a job you do, a buyer's going to walk in and say, I would have done that. I would have done this different. So I wouldn't do that. I would keep the place clean, and renovations take time. And as prices are falling, just get on the market, because if you don't get on today and you wait 3 months, you're going to be down another 3 or 4%. And you put money into a renovation, you're not going to recoup it. So
it's like that ongoing debate as hear people saying, oh, should we do carpets or laminate? And I say, just leave it be, because you never know who's going to walk in. They may hate laminate. Most people like laminate, but that being said, they may hate it and just going to rip up your brand new laminate anyways.
Yeah.
So
unless the carpet is like so hideous, right? If it's like so gross and like people don't want to step on it or something, then you got to do something like put lipstick on it. But yeah, exactly, right. But put some lipstick on it if you need to, but only if you need to, and don't do anything too crazy, and just be realistic with your price, because I've seen a lot of listings, and you've probably seen them too this year, really chase the market down because they tried for a price here, they end up selling here. They could have sold for so much higher if they just priced right off of the start, right?
Absolutely. So. Now, with the rents, we hear some people are trying to push for rent control to be implemented. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a bad idea?
Yeah. So I mean, here in BC, we do have like a rent control in terms of, how much you're able to raise rents on the same tenant.
Of course.
But what we don't have, and what I hear a lot of people talk about, is this vacancy control. Yeah. And basically it's like, okay, because how it works right now is when the tenant leaves, you're now free to charge whatever rent that you want to the new tenant. And typically when the rental market's hot, landlords are excited about that. They're like, sweet, we're in a good spot. Now, vacancy control would mean that tenant leaves, and now you have to charge the next tenant the same amount or with that additional percentage.
Yeah.
I think that controlling the rental market in this sort of way, I don't think it really helps at all. I think rent control in general, if you look at studies that have been done across North America, they kind of promote slum living conditions. Absolutely. And slumlords. Really hard for landlords to actually invest in their properties when they can't treat it like free market. So I'm against rent control, vacancy control as well. Now in Ontario, I don't know if you heard, but Doug Ford has basically put a bill forth where he wants to allow landlords to kind of take it to the next level, where they could basically terminate a lease for almost any reason. Nuts. That's crazy. Like, I don't agree with that. I think there needs to, again, we were talking about compassion for tenants. That needs to be there. Housing is a necessity. It's a need. But at the same time, anytime governments have tried to control the market in any sort of way, it's never helped.
Always backfires.
It's never done anything. And ultimately what has ended up happening is everyone just pays more taxes. The prices stay the same, and everyone ultimately, or they keep increasing, and everyone just ends up putting more, money into government pockets. Mm-hmm. You look around, is the money getting spent the way it should? Probably a topic for another podcast, but and we all have questions about that. But no, I don't believe in control. I believe that free market should prevail, and they generally, work themselves out. When you don't have rent control, you have more investors that want to invest in rental housing. They see the opportunity. They say, let's build, let's do it. And so now you have more supply. And so now the rents are going to level out. So let markets be markets, let governments be governments, and just, kind of let it be, in my opinion.
Yeah, which is kind of a nice segue, because you just touched on some of the municipal and provincial housing policies, such as the empty homes tax, the changes to short-term rules. What are your thoughts on those? I mean, I gather obviously some free market, but I mean, for instance, the empty homes tax, it's kind of tricky sometimes, especially in a slower market like this. Like, people still need to do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Example, if somebody has left and they have a job on the other side of the planet right now.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't want to rent their house, but now what?
Yeah. What are you going to do? Right. So I think anytime government comes out and kind of blankets a policy, mm-hmm. there are going to be people that it works for and it makes a lot of sense for, and there's going to be people that it doesn't. That's just how it is. And I think that the policies have been very reactive and they've been very blanket. And mm-hmm. so they're hurting people in different ways, right? If we look at, for example, like speculation and vacancy tax, mm-hmm. They start every year they're rolling this out to more and more communities. They're kind of edging on the borderline of, is this a resort community? Is it not? Mm-hmm. So people that purchase, for example, in Victoria, they purchased like these micro condos that were specifically meant to rent short term. Nobody wants to rent them long term. And so now they're in a challenging position because those were designed to kind of fill a short term need. So, I know it's hard, but I would like to see government make some more like focused decisions and take a bit more time and not just say, look, for everyone, it's going to be this.
Yeah.
Right. Because then you do these short-term rental restrictions, and then you end up in a scenario where, we have one of the largest events coming
World
next
Cup's
year.
Coming. Where are we going to put everyone?
Where are we going to put everyone? And now it's so funny because you have the provincial government who is basically like, we're not going to change. We're not changing for the World Cup. Like, we don't care. We're doing this. You have the city of Vancouver basically begging the people that live in Vancouver to rent their principal residences short term.
Yeah.
Now, not to let the city of Vancouver off the hook because they came up with short-term legislation before the province. So that, look, you guys have made your bed, right?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, the impacts of not having enough rooms. And I think they said that we're going to be short 70,000 nights, where hotel costs are going to go up 200%. People that come here are just literally not going to have a place to stay.
Yeah.
And I really hope the government looks at it and thinks about the economic impact over the next 5 to 10 years of having people come here, have the worst experience that they possibly can. And literally at the end of the trip, they're going to be like, I just can't wait to get out of here.
Yeah, for sure. Man.
Screw the games. I just want to get out of here. We can't have that. If we really want this country to grow, and it's debate, some people don't want it to grow, but it's debatable. But at the same time, I think they really need to make some amendments during a very short period of time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Right? Just to roll that back. I mean, the thing too that's interesting is that when we have a large event, usually real estate picks up 2 years afterwards.
Yeah.
When Expo 86 came, went up. Olympics came, went up. So possibly World Cup, the same thing. But as you pointed out, that might be an issue. The other thing that I'm kind of curious about, though, even on the short-term rentals, is when people are coming over for World Cup, they're coming over to party.
Yeah.
And I am super curious that if people are still doing the short-term rental, how many are going to get damaged? Because I'm not blanketing all, but if you get some football hooligans come over, they're drinking and carrying on, you're going to end up some holes and things.
I think they party the hardest, right? Would you say of sports fans? Who would you say parties the hardest of the sports fans?
I would say that
probably
the football is up there, or right? Gridiron. I mean, you see some of them tailgate parties down in the States. Them boys get pretty nuts.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's gonna cause damage. There's gonna be a whole bunch of people partying in the city. It's kind of like when we had the Olympics.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone was, I don't know if you're, we're all partying for the whole month, right?
It was 1999.
All the days were blending into each other and stuff. So I think that's just part and parcel of it. You got to take the bad with the good. There's going to be benefits, and you're going to have to deal with some stuff for a few weeks. I think that's just the nature of it. And I think just based on what hotels are potentially going to charge for nights and what you can charge for your Airbnb or your short-term rental, you're going to get compensated for it.
Yeah.
Right. You'll be okay if you choose to do it.
It's a risk versus reward, I guess, as it were.
Yeah,
right?
Everything in life, right? So
yeah, so it's going to be challenging, and as you mentioned with the hotels and that, I guess people are going to be having to travel on the SkyTrain. So New West Inn at the Quay is going to be full.
Yeah,
and keep on going out to Surrey is going to be full. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that way people can at least get down to watch the matches or whatever. But I think right downtown Vancouver, the prices are going to be astronomical.
It's going to be
anyone
crazy
coming here, right? So
yeah,
it's going to be some interesting times next year when the World Cup is in town, and we'll see what happens.
We'll see how it all plays out. I really do hope it goes well, because anytime your city can be on the world stage, I think you have to put your best foot forward. You put your suit on, you make yourself, you let the world know that, hey, we're still a top city.
Yeah.
Because that's how, if you recall, that's how we all grew up. We were a top 3 or a top 5 destination where everyone wanted to come.
Yeah.
And I think we need to get back to that. I think that's really important.
Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned about people coming here, since the immigration has been significantly cut down.
Yeah.
And I believe that's why we're starting to see a lot of lull in both sales and rental as well.
Yeah.
Simply for the fact, especially looking back east, it was interesting and eye-opening. I went back to Moncton.
Yeah.
And they were very upset that the immigration had been tied off, because there's programs for new Canadians to come, and they start off in the Maritimes, spend a couple years or whatever, and it kind of fast tracks their paperwork, and then they head off to, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver,
right.
trip.
Yeah.
And when I was back there, the rental market was definitely slower, as well as I had not seen that many help wanted signs, mostly for entry level stuff, coffee shops, stuff like this. And it was just interesting just to see, because you hear in the major cities, Toronto, Vancouver, and so on, like, oh, that's fine, great, blah, blah, blah. But these smaller cities really need these new Canadians, because we ain't having the babies.
Right? Well, exactly, right? And so birth rates going down, immigration for now is getting, they're putting a seal on it. But that, I don't personally think that's going to be a long-term thing or even a midterm thing. I think they're really focused on kind of reopening that back up and maybe being a bit more selective with who they have come into the country. But that's what's impacted the rents here. A lot of the condo sales, because a lot of these condos, they were built with immigrants in mind, like who would come and rent these, who wanted these types of spaces, especially a lot of the smaller condos. To a lot of Canadians that maybe grew up here, it's not something that we would maybe live in, but we're talking about people coming here from other countries where they live in very close proximity to each other. So this is actually having their own space, albeit it's 400 square feet. It's their own space. Like that's totally fine. They can make it work. And so we're kind of seeing the damages of so many things, right? COVID hits, the rates get dropped to the ground, money's free, let's start investing. People want to move away from downtown cores. They want to buy more real estate because we're not allowed to be this close to people, right? So let's get more space. Then the rates go up, and the rates obviously go up on the developers too, and the construction costs and all of these things. And now the borders are shut. Like it's
weird.
It's reactive policy. Mm-hmm. But look, I'm sitting here as a real estate agent. Like my job's easy, right? I'm not the governor of the Bank of Canada. I'm not the prime minister. I'm not having to make these monumental decisions. So it's easy for me to say that everything's reactive, right? But, I like to believe that if they could have done better, they would have, if they could have made these decisions at different times. But, that's everything's correlated. And that's why, tying it back to real estate, it's literally why we are where we are at this current stage. Will it last forever? No. Will it probably last for the next 2-3 years? Yeah.
I'm thinking around the 2-3 years recovery. I've had a lot of people have asked what I think the future holds. I don't think this is going to be a fast fix.
Yeah.
So that's why when I'd mentioned about investing locally or even non-locally, as you touched on, wait for that longer ride, because, you may have to ride it out, but at least you bought the property super cheap.
Yeah.
Right? So
and you're never going to be able to time the bottom. Like none of us can. We always look back and we say, okay, that was a good time to buy. That was a good time to buy. I will say that I think now for condo buyers that want to buy for 7 to 10 years, I do think they're going to look back and they're going to say, that was a good time to buy. They may not say like that was the best time.
Yeah.
But I do believe they're going to look back and say, hey, we did this at a good time. This was a good time. So,
or alternately, damn, I missed it.
Or I missed it. Yeah, 100%.
So, it's kind of with that. And now, we've been talking about various things such as the pricing pushing down and immigration and all that. It seems in a lot of cases that the housing crisis is less of a supply issue and more of an affordability one. Using a New West where we were both living as an example, there's 5 full purpose-built rentals. That's a lot of units. But a bunch of them are still empty. So what do you think, like some, obviously it's far too much to get handled in a podcast, but what do you think some things would do to sort of help bridge this gap? Because I'm honestly not in the camp so much that it's a supply issue. Because there's heaps of them. But
and I think like as realtors, a lot of us had always kind of leaned on, we just need more supply. We just need more supply.
Absolutely.
We're saying that for so long, right? we all were like, okay, it's supply and demand, because it's like one of those economic principles that I guess all of us can understand, right?
In grade 8.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Econ 101 that we went to half and then we dropped out halfway through. But
that's one.
Right? So we're like supply and demand. But I think what we've learned now is that, like we kind of touched on, it's not just about supply. It's about is it A, livable, number one, and B, is it affordable? And we're somewhat checking off the livable but we're definitely not checking off the affordable.
Nope.
So what do? You have all these builders that have constructed condo units at a specific cost per square foot that they've put into these units. They haven't fully sold them. It costs them this much. And, consumers are saying we can only afford to pay this much.
Yeah.
Costs them this much. We can only afford this. So we have an imbalance.
Absolutely.
And so ultimately, there's no easy fix because most of the people that need to buy are not pressed to buy. They're not like, I have to do this. They can keep renting. And in fact, they can move to another rental a year from now and possibly be in lower rents like we talked about. So something's got to break. Something's got to give. The give is going to have to come from the developers. I hate to use the word reset, but there's going to have to be a reset on a lot of these units that are in the market. You're hearing developers now, some talk about it's time for a bailout. We need some sort of bailout to get out of this. So there's going to be a breaking point. I can't tell you exactly when it's going to come, but it's going to come. And when that comes, things are going to shift back in the other direction. Once that breaking point occurs, we'll start slowly heading back towards what, Vancouver real estate typically is. But there's that imbalance and something needs to break it. It's going to be painful.
So do you figure if there is a bailout or something that we'll see lowering prices on new builds? Or what do you think that's going to look like?
I think that the government has, in a lot of ways, they've done what they can with the GST relief and things like that. They could have gone further, rather than just do it on first-time buyers. Why not allow any purchaser, right? Why not have a full GST rebate up to 1.5 versus trickling it down? That really increases the value. And for people in Vancouver that want to be in townhomes or larger spaces, they can do that and save a lot more money. So I think in some ways, the government's not going to use the word bailout because the general public does not want you bailing out developers.
No, they're all evil.
Yeah, if there's anyone that's hated more than realtors, it might be developers, or we're pretty close, or whatever, right? So they're not going to come out and say we're bailing out, but on the back end, they're trying to do these little things that are trying to make it easier. Yeah. But there's nothing really the government can do to really bail them out, right? There's you're going to have to take a hit, and the larger developers are going to find a way to stomach it. They'll find a way. But what we've also seen now over the last couple of years is the smaller and the mid developers are just disappearing, right? And so now it's kind of
absolutely,
if it's consumerism, it's developer wise, you'll have Amazon and Walmart and these big, amalgamating with the other developers, and you're just not going to have these smaller
the boutique
developers.
Guys. Yeah,
it's hard for them unless they stick to boutique, small scale, away from the cores, away from high density stuff.
Yeah,
they can do it. But the developers I talk to, no one's taking on risk right now, right? No. If they can do a townhome project of 40 units, they're saying, no, let me just do row homes of 8 units.
Yeah,
let's just scale it all down, and then that squeezes out the smaller developer, the one who normally feeds on the 8 units. Now they're having to feed on smaller, and it's kind of a trickle down and pushing out that smaller developer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, wicked, man. Well, thank you very much for coming by. I think we've fixed all the real estate, I think, right?
Yeah, we're good. Yeah, we're good to go. Yeah, exactly.
Don't even worry about it.
No, but thanks for having me. Really happy to be here. I know we met a couple times in New West through community groups or whatever, and that was a lot of fun. So, happy to be here. So.
Wicked. So, if someone's trying to find you to pick your brain more, what's the best way to find Hasan?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you can find me Instagram, TikTok, at Hasan Juma, and then I have my YouTube channel where every week I'm doing a real estate video Saturday mornings. Hasan Juma, Vancouver Realtor on there. But those are, the best channels. DM me anytime. Happy to chat with. I just like talking real estate. So, if you want to talk about real estate, you can just chat, DM me anytime. We'll chat.
Wicked, yeah. And we'll have that all in the description below so that everyone can find your various, maybe see you dance on TikTok or something.
I actually never will dance, and I struggle to even smile when I'm on camera. So that's what I'm working on. I think I did a little bit of that in this episode, but yeah it was a lot of fun. So.
Wicked. Well, thanks for coming on.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
And if you've been listening this long, thank you very much for tuning in to Vancouver's Property Management and Investment Podcast.